Check one, 2, 3. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. Okay, my guest today is a production sound mixer and boom op based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Please welcome Benjamin Roembach-Clark.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I've been asking a lot of the guests, what was your Covid-19 experience like?
Oh boy.
Tell us about it.
I guess it started off with I planned on taking February and March off, reinvested some money into my equipment, and was getting set up for a very busy feature season over the summer. A couple of weeks before that was really start to kick off, everything got shut down. So I was kind of dead in the water for a while. The whole time between, was it late March when things started shutting down till just a few months ago, there was not much going on. There was a lot of disc golf being played, a lot of research, doing some field recording projects, set up some gear out at different spots, recorded some soundscapes and ambiances, and you really just started getting back into things maybe 2 months ago, and then I just got back from a feature project literally yesterday. Feeling good about things, but still a big question mark as to when things are really gonna start getting back into full swing of productions happening.
So, now that you're back on set, how are things different for you?
Oh, things are very different for sound department. We got a lot of sanitization that we have to be very, very diligent about. Obviously everyone's wearing masks and there's hand sanitizers flowing like a river on set. We were operating in a kind of a 2-stage wristband situation. Red wristbands mean you are not on set. You're a support member. So many of the departments had multiple team members that one or two might be with red wristbands, and then one or maybe two might be with green wristbands, so that maybe G&E could come in, light stuff, but they needed to clear out before talent got on set. And trying to keep things compartmentalized was really the name of the game. 3 times a week testing, which I tell you never gets easier. They stick a swab up your nose and they don't stop until they feel it hit something back there.
Yeah, they gotta hit a solid wall. Although it's a small membrane between your brain, and the back, so you're like, don't.
Yeah, don't sneeze or they could go right through.
Man, well, that sounds like they're trying really hard, because not all productions are doing that. So that's great.
Yeah, it felt very safe. There's that added bonus of this particular project. It takes place in northern Minnesota, and the entire crew was quarantined to a lakeside resort. Different departments had their own cabins, and I think there was 12 cabins on this land. Plenty of space, a lot of lakeside. Everyone was there. Everyone was together. We were tested all the time, and I guess we were pretty confident with the way things were going. Even as we got comfortable, we're still taking the precautions, but it felt more safe and more comfortable just to know that everyone that's involved has been doing their due diligence and being safe about stuff.
That's good. Yeah, we were, my wife is actually high risk. She's got asthma. So we were trying to be really careful, actually hyper careful. So we were taking care of everything and, mask and gloves and hand sanitizer, social distancing, all the things you're supposed to do. We were staying, home a lot, and my wife got sick, and then I got sick right after her, and so we're sick at the same time. And then we have 2 daughters, and they ended up getting sick. But my wife actually, it was tough for her going through. But they basically just send you home and say, hey, good luck. If you can't breathe, go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So that was quite the experience, and ended up, my wife, although it was difficult for her, she came through it faster than me. I was down for 3 weeks, and I had it all. I had the fever, I had the body aches, I had the chills. It was a mess, and so I'm just now, coming out of it, in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you're all recovering. That's the big thing.
And the recovery phase takes a while too. So it's like you don't just snap right out of it. They're saying it could take weeks to get back to normal. And then they're finding that some people ended up with heart and other organ damage from the virus.
Yeah.
So that's like a new thing. So yeah, it's a real deal. So for those people out there listening that think it's a hoax, it was not a hoax for me.
Yeah, so. It's very clear the entire world is dealing with this, but
it's definitely been an experience. But also, I guess in Minnesota too, you guys have had a challenging summer with the death of George Floyd. So what's that been like for you?
Things have gotten mostly back to normal. We all know what happened with George Floyd, and the community came out to support him and demand accountability from the police officers involved in the killing, which it was great to see all that happening. And then we had some insiders come in and try and start this unrest. Entire neighborhoods were terrorized for several weeks. The police are still kind of stepping back a lot from responding to crime and stuff, but as a whole, the city feels like we have, come together and things are getting back to normal. COVID aside, back to peace and stability, at least.
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenging 2020 for sure.
Oh, man. Yeah. And our friends on the West Coast are all dealing with these wildfires now. It's one thing after the other, but we all got to stick together and look out for each other in these times, and it seems like a lot of people have been doing that.
Well, Ben, as we always talk about as a production sound mixer, tell us a little bit about what's in your audio kit. So kind of give us a rundown of your mixer, your recorder, preferred mics, and everything in between.
Yeah, sure. I love talking gear, so this is easy. Right now, I'm using a Sound Devices 833. Loving it. I've had it since midwinter and done a couple projects, features with it so far, and just it sounds fantastic. The feature set is everything you could ask for. Recently started using the Noise Assist plugin, which has come in very handy in a lot of situations. Like did a commercial in an auto garage, and there's a lot of background noises, and the producer was really impressed with the fact that it could do that in real time and still maintain a perfectly untouched audio track as well. So yeah, I've been loving the 833.
Have you used other mixers besides the 833?
Oh sure, yeah. So there's a rental house in Minneapolis called Conduit Sound. A little shout out to Jim Morgan over there and all the guys over there. But it's a Zaxcom house, so I also use Zaxcom Nomads, Diva 24s, and now Novas. Those are also fantastic products. For my own taste and workflow preferences, I do prefer the Sound Devices system, but the Zaxcom has some features that aren't in any other system, and it is a great system as well. Yeah, I definitely use all sorts of gear. Previous to this winter, I was using a Zoom F8 recorder mixer for like lower budget stuff. Yeah, most of my time is either Zaxcom or Sound Devices. As far as microphones go, I guess our friends that are listening can't see, but that's a Sennheiser MKH-50. Love the sound of this mic for anything I don't need to problem solve. It's pretty much the most popular thing on the end of the boom for me. Sounds so smooth, maybe a little bit of a low-end boost. Just a great sounding mic. And if I do have problems to solve, I bust out the Sanken CS-3e shotgun mic. That thing is incredible. The isolation that it offers. It kind of has a laser focus. You got to be quite accurate with your booming, but it sounds fantastic. And if you need to isolate from background sounds, or you can't get very close because of a wide shot, that makes an appearance in a lot of those situations. My wireless, I'm using Sony UWPs in my own personal kit. The Zaxcom kits that I use from Conduit are fully kitted out Zaxcom ecosystem, so those all work together great. But
now with the Zaxcoms, you can actually change the frequencies and gain and everything from the mixer itself, so you don't even have to get close to the transmitter, correct?
Yeah, it's a great feature, especially when you have a lot of wires out. You'll be sitting at a cart with a mixing surface that will have a hands-on control for your gain, and then you can easily select new frequencies if you are coming up with wireless problems.
Don't they have the built-in IFB as well?
Yep, the IFBs they run on the 2.4 gigahertz spectrums. They don't have the greatest range. So it's one of those things where you try and get the cart kind of near Video Village so everyone can hear, but you also got to be close to set so they can get their camera hop feeds. Those IFBs are really great because they also feature timecode. So that same unit, you slap one on a camera, you're giving them timecode and a scratch audio track just from one box and one kind of splitter cable that would come out of that, which is also great. The feature I just got off of, I was boom operating and I was testing out their new URX series IFB, which is a UHF version of that kind of thing, which still does get timecode and audio as well, with the added feature that you can tune into the individual transmitters from the IFB, so that say I'm away from set and I'm miking talent where wardrobe is happening, I can really quickly tune into their transmitter, give it a quick listen, make sure that the mic placement is going to be great for what we are doing, and I don't have to be at the mixer to do that. It's a really cool feature.
Yeah, that's great.
I am on my kit using the Sennheiser G4 system for IFBs. They have great range, they sound good, and they're rock solid. You can drop one of those things 100 times and it's not going to crack.
All right. What kind of batteries do you like to use?
I'm using the Inspired Energy series of smart batteries. They do a battery change at lunch, and that'll get me through an entire day. I keep some really tiny L-mount batteries on the back of the unit just for backup. I probably don't need them, but they're there just in case.
Okay. What batteries do you put in your transmitters and receivers?
Oh, the Panasonic Eneloops. They're a great battery. They've never failed me. They just work. They last a long time. I just got some of the IDST chargers for those, which let you dial in your amperage for how quickly they're going to charge. So I charge them really slow, so they hopefully will maintain their life. But you could also, if you need them fast, you can bump it up and get them to charge in just a couple hours. I've been really loving those chargers, which it sounds like a small thing, but they really do offer great feature set.
Oh, that's great. It's the first time we've talked a little bit about that, so that's cool. Well, let's see. So what lav mics do you like to use?
Pretty much everything I use is the Sanken COS-11s. They're more or less indestructible. They're getting yanked on by talent. They're getting misted by hairspray. They're getting fake blood on them. They're getting wiped down, multiple times daily, and they still keep ticking. And that goes for my own kit, and anything that I rent is almost always going to come with COS-11s.
And tell us about timecode.
Timecode, I'm on the Tentacle Sync system. It's easy, very fast to do. You can do a really quick check, with the app on your phone, and it's kind of set it in the morning and give it a quick jam at lunch when you're changing batteries, and another thing that lasts me all day without really worrying too much about.
All right. Let's see, did we cover everything in the bag? Anything else in there that you'd like to?
I keep an assortment of extra cables, a little tiny notebook. The Bumblebee lav concealers are something I've really dove into over the past year. It's like a little rubber mount. It has a removable clip, so you can clip it onto the inside of the buttons on a shirt, or you can clip it onto a bra, wherever you need to clip something, but you can't take that off if you want to use top stick and stick it directly to some fabric or skin or something. And they also feature just a little wire guard over where the mic peeks out, and that's a feature I haven't seen before on any of the other lav concealers, but it actually prevents fabric from rubbing on the mic and the rubber of the mount. It keeps them dead silent. I think that was the biggest upgrade in the smallest package I could possibly do. Bought a couple of those and instantly just fell in love. They're so simple and they sound great.
Mm. Well, speaking of expendables, what other expendables do you use?
Yeah, I suppose I keep a standard selection of moleskin, overcovers, undercovers. I always keep the tie clips and the wind balls that come with the Sankens. If I'm doing some kind of corporate video or something where it doesn't matter if the mic's showing, I'm always going to push to have the mic showing and clipped on the outside. It just sounds better. There's no chance that fabric's going to rub on it, and I try and get away with those whenever I'm allowed.
I saw that you worked on, it was the NCAA Final Four 2019. You were a sound mixer for that. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, that was it was a wonderful experience. It was crazy to see the huge amount of production that went into that event. I think every sound mixer in town was busy working in that stadium. Walking through the halls, you'd see people, it's like, hey, everyone's working. But yeah, my particular job was I was working with CBS as a behind the scenes team following. I'm not a sports guy, so I can't even remember the team I was following, but I was with them whenever something would happen. I'd be there. Practices, interviews, press conferences, and anything the team was doing, essentially. I did have some chunks of downtime, but then I'd get a phone call from the producer. Hey, we're gonna be here in 10 minutes. Meet us there. This is happening. Be ready with this. And we'd zip across the stadium, meet up, and do the interview, or get B-roll of a practice or some behind the scenes of another commercial shoot. It was very constant. There's always something happening, and always 100 people that were doing something. It was quite impressive to see just the sheer amount of production that went into such a large sport event.
What was the kind of the typical wiring or miking setup you had to do?
Frankly, I was just running around with a bag and a boom. I had a wireless handheld stick mic for my producer when she was performing interviews, and it was 90% of my day was pointing the boom at whoever was talking.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was very tiring. Hours were long and irregular, but a great experience.
Now, what was the timecode setup? How did you guys have timecode?
I was using a Zaxcom rig, so it was the ERX timecode and audio coming out of the same box. And I actually ended up having several different ones set up because they had me jumping between camera crews kind of quickly. So I had one set up for the Sony FS7, and I had one set up for Red, and I had one more set up for the other camera the third guy I would regularly work with was using.
All right, cool. Let's see. I was looking at something else. You did a movie. I think it was a Christmas Break-In back in the 2018, and you had Danny Glover and Denise Richards, and so tell us a little bit about that experience.
Oh, sure. That was a fun movie. It's kind of a Home Alone type vibe. Elementary school girl gets locked into the school over Christmas break, and then the robbers situation happens. I won't give too much away since I know everyone's going to watch it on Netflix. But it was a really good experience. We shot up in Duluth in the winter, So we were all bundled up and, working inside of the school, but also working outside. And I felt like we had a little bit of a breakfast club going on because company moves were across this elementary school, and we're zigzagging down the hallways, and there'd be 10 of us going, pushing carts, and you'd see another set of crew members go down a different hallway as you're looking. It was really fun. A lot of great crew members that I've become friends with on that shoot, and yeah, there was some bigger talent. They were fantastic to work with. At one point we were shooting in a barn, and I had put a mask on because I was getting allergic to, there's like hay and dust in the air, and I was starting to get sniffly and sneezy, and Denise was like, "I'm gonna find you some allergy medicine," and she went and tracked me down some Zyrtec or whatever I don't remember exactly what it was, but like an antihistamine to get it under control. She was so sweet. And so the child actress Cameron, she was fantastic. She was a lot of fun to work with. She was playing jokes on people throughout the set. I think a whoopee cushion came out. It was a good time had by all.
That's great. Now, any unique miking situations with that?
I don't think we did anything too out of the ordinary. It was the kind of thing where often I'll teach an actor to mic themselves, and kind of makes it easier so that I can hand them the mic with whatever mounting device or sticky stuff or moleskin, whatever's going to be on it. They know where to stick the mic, and then while they're doing that, I can make sure the pack is tucked into a waist strap or an ankle strap or whatever. I think for that particular movie, it was more or less straightforward.
Okay. Now, what's been your most favorite project so far?
I have a couple really good memories of some fantastic projects. One of my first small features that I did just by myself as a one-man sound crew was called Max Bishop. A really fun project, a lot of heart and soul, incredibly funny, very, very well made. And it was kind of a one-man show. The producer, director, writer, he took the reins, he made everything happen, and it happened well. We had a great crew. I have such an attachment to that movie just because of the wonderful experience and all the great friendships that came out of that. And another one that I made, or I worked on in New York a few years ago, was called What Breaks the Ice. Check that one out in the Woodstock Film Fest this year. That's going to be its premiere event. Another fantastic experience, wonderful crew. The writer, director, producer, Rebecca Escrease, phenomenal storyteller. She had a vision, and the director of photography, Greta Zazula, amazing skill went into this film, and it's kind of a tragic and hard story, but it's told in such a way that it's a pretty beautiful movie. I have seen it. It's really great, but I guess y'all could see it at the Woodstock Film Festival if you want to log on to their events this year.
All right. Now, tell us how you got started in production sound.
So I guess sound in general, I've been doing recording projects for my own bands, going back to high school, going into a laptop or a computer with a sound card from a mixer board and whatever mics we could scrounge together to make something happen. I eventually got into computer music using Ableton Live and modular synthesizers and drum machines. And I did a lot of music for a number of years, played in a few bands, really enjoyed doing that kind of thing. But as far as production sound goes, so when I moved to Minneapolis, I was working as a bartender, and I guess I fell in with a crowd of folks that were regulars at the bar I worked at that were all filmmakers. I volunteered on a horror shoot for a pilot. I was a PA, and it turned out that the sound guy was another of my customers that I talked sound gear with all the time. So I was like, oh, this is what you do? And he's pulling out his sound card out of his car, and he's like, yeah, come help me with this stuff. And so I guess even in that very first moment on set, I was already like edging my way towards the sound cart whenever I could to talk to those guys about what was going on. And so Jim kind of recognized that I was really interested, and he invited me back to his place, the Conduit Sound I mentioned earlier, to let me play with the Zaxcom gear and go through all of the menus and the gear and set stuff up and play with it. And then he started sending me out on smaller jobs and as a boom operator with more experienced mixers. And then I kind of was like, wow, I've never in my life known what I wanted to do with my time. And in that moment, I was like, this is what I got to do. So I started selling off some of my music making gear and reinvested it into microphones, wireless recorders, and that kind of thing. And just snowball effect, made friends, made connections, and every time a project ends, my phone rings and something else pops up.
That's great, and that's a good networking technique. Become a bartender, and then some of your customers are going to be on film crews and stuff. That's pretty cool. I've never heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the place was a little neighborhood kind of diner. We did craft cocktails and really good food, and so I'd see just people from the neighborhood, and the studio that I mentioned is in the neighborhood. Just all sorts of crew that lives in the neighborhood. That as I work on more and more projects, oh yeah, you live just over by me. It's a small town. It's a small big city.
All right, now you got to tell us what's your favorite craft cocktail?
Oh, wow. There's a Scotch drink called a Blood and Sand. It's Scotch, cherry hearing, a little bit of orange juice. It's a smoky, sweet, strong, delicious drink. It's not super common. You might have to teach the bartender how to make it, but I think a lot of craft places or classic cocktail places would know how to make that. Actually, through my work as a bartender, I stopped drinking. It was a world where I was partying a lot, and right around the time I started diving into production sound, I realized I don't need to be wasting my energy and money doing that. So I saved that money and put that all into buying batteries and wind covers and wireless units and whatnot.
It's true because when you kind of hang out with the bartender and they're like, hey, do some shots with us, and and you've got people doing that all night long, that could be tough.
Oh yeah. And if you got to shoot the next day, you don't want to be showing up smelling like you just got out of the party, went right on the set or something.
Well, for some of our listeners who may not know about getting into the union, you joined the union. So tell us, what was your experience and how did you get in? How did all that start?
Okay, so there is a union, IATSE Local 490 in Minneapolis. There's not a whole lot of union features that come here, but there is a lot of commercial and corporate work that is union. So I guess I knew a few people that I worked with regularly that were already in the union. They kind of gave me the advice as to, okay, maybe you don't need to do it now, but then there was a time where it was like, okay, we're starting to need you on these union shoots, so maybe now's the time. You should start looking into getting references. I had to get several letters of recommendation from people I worked with, directors and producers and department heads that I had worked for, tracked those down. They wanted a lot of information about the hours that I've spent on sets. They wanted to know that I was, committed and not someone who is just trying to do this to move on to something else. And there was a lot of back and forth communication. They would get back to me about maybe another thing that they wanted to see about. They wanted to make sure that I had lived in Minnesota for a couple years. So I had to track down some old utility bills and stuff like that, just to say, okay, no, I live here. This is me. I'm the guy. Had a couple of other members of the union personally vouch for me, and there was some entry fees and some other stuff I had to do, some safety training through IATSE that was basic on-set safety stuff, which to myself seemed like common sense, but I guess they want to make sure everyone has that kind of a teamwork and safety-oriented mindset going into sets if they're going to represent the union. But at the end of the day, it came down to getting sworn in one day, and then you're a member of the union. A large union of people who work in the fields, can offer advice, can offer support, and connections and networking.
Now, how has your career changed since you joined the union?
Oh, I've done a few union commercials that's a great level up in the pay scale that you're going to experience, but also the demands are higher. Quite frankly, I haven't done a whole lot of union work, but it's the type of thing that I'm available if and when that work pops up. So I think as a somewhat newer member of the production sound community, I've been doing this about 3.5 years now. I would think it even adds some legitimacy to myself. They may not see 10 years of experience, but they do see some good experience, and they see that I am a union member, which should tell them I take this very seriously. And I don't know if it has changed my world too much, but it's just another way of getting more involved, continuing in this field, and just taking everything to the highest level I possibly can.
And also, too, the fact that you haven't been in the industry that long, what else would you attribute to moving up as quickly as you have?
I think the biggest thing is probably my demeanor on set. I try and take the work very seriously, but in like my personal communications on set, you can be funny and lighthearted and interact with people in a fun way while taking your job very seriously and respectfully asking for what you need when you're not necessarily taken care of all the time in the sound department.
All right. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good for people to hear too. People just starting out and things like that. So that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants a grouchy crew member on set. It spreads. Everyone gets grouchy by the end of the day just from one person who's got that bad attitude. So if you can keep a positive mental attitude, do your job, do it well, those people are going to call you back. Almost all of my work comes directly from personal references and word of mouth.
Well, we always ask this question, but you don't have to mention any names or places, but tell us your worst on-set experience.
The first thing that comes to mind is a technical and sound-related thing that happened on the feature that I just got back from. So this movie required a lot of work on the water. At some points, I was in fishing waders, standing up to my chest in water with the boom pole in my hands. But the biggest problem that we constantly ran into was the water splashing against the hull of the boats and reverberating up into the mic. We were shooting on a flotilla of several pontoons. At one point, there's a jet ski, several smaller tin boats as support for everyone. They were making runs to shore and getting supplies and stuff like that, taking people to the bathroom. And then there's also the picture boat. We tried everything. We wrapped a wall of pool noodles, those foam noodles, around the boats to try and prevent the waves from lapping against the hull, and it's a percussive sound. It's loud. You can't hide from it.
And then how many, 8 or 10 boats out there, something like that, or?
I'd say usually there was 4 to 5. Sometimes there was a few more than that. We also had support from fishermen. There was a couple of shots where we wanted our talent to pull a fish out of the water before she releases it. So we had a fisherman that was there catching us fish to use in the shots.
So lots of noise.
Lots of noise, man. We were lining boats with furniture pads. We were blocking off the front of the pontoons so the echoing didn't travel towards the picture boat. And we recorded a lot of wild lines, and I think there is gonna unfortunately be some ADR for some of the windier days where the waves were higher. We did luck out on several days and have absolutely no wind, which on those days it was quite nice out there. There was no background sounds, and it sounded fantastic. But the constant struggle of those waves lapping it against the boat was about enough to drive a two-man sound team nuts.
Now, what ended up being the most effective in kind of reducing that noise?
I think the pool noodles in a circle, or like tightly around the boat that we were shooting into. It stopped the waves from actually slapping against the hull. Now this is a very small aluminum fishing boat, so the sound would just travel straight through that aluminum and be amplified up towards the mics. So for our situation, that was definitely what helped us the most. That idea came from one of our pontoon captains, who is I would say your classic idea of a northern Minnesota lakes guy, fisherman. He was great. He tried everything. He's like, I got these noodles, they're gonna prevent the waves, and we tried it, and it surprised everyone, but it worked, and we stuck with it.
Well, now, are there any other nightmare situations you've had on set that you can share?
There have been times where productions have been approached by homeless people or people who are looking to cause trouble. I've shot around New York City a little bit, and there was a little bit of that. Most people don't care, and they just want you to get out of their way. Most people don't even care and are just annoyed that you're in their way, but there's sometimes people who latch on that something's happening and they want to get involved, or they want to cause trouble, or whatever the case may be. And there's definitely been some awkward situations with outsiders approaching production and how to deal with that, but I feel like I've been pretty fortunate where I haven't had too many truly bad situations on set. Most of the people that I've worked with have been very thoughtful, and everything's been safe, and communication's been good. So I feel lucky in that sense.
Wow. All right. Now, for some of our listeners maybe just getting started in the industry, do you have any advice that you could share with them?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing would be to just keep moving forward. If you're volunteering on set, if you're meeting people, if they're recognizing that you're a hard worker, that's going to be exponentially more effective than just about anything else I could possibly think of to forward your career. Even if you're coming in as a PA at the, one of the lower levels of production, as everyone you work with starts moving up and getting bigger projects, they're still going to remember you, and they're going to remember how you act on set and your work ethic. So I think just your on-set demeanor is the biggest thing that you can do. First thing, be there, be on set, volunteer if you have to, but once you're there, make sure you're behaving yourself and treating it like a workplace with a balance. You don't have to be a robot. It is nice that we in this field have a somewhat fun work environment a lot of the time, and we can joke around with each other, and we may have downtime we're making friendships on set all the time, and I think that's what has carried me into this career.
All right. Well, Ben, as we kind of close things up here, what's the best way for people to connect with you online?
So I have a website, benrc.myportfolio.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram at BRC Sound. Frankly, shoot me an email, shoot me a Facebook message. Any way works, but email is usually the easiest. brcsoundandmedia@gmail.com.
Cool. All right. I want to say thanks to Benjamin Roembach-Clark for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. I had a great time talking about location sound.
And I'd like to say thanks to everyone for listening. If you have questions or would like us to discuss a particular topic, email us at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.